I couldn't recognize the woman in the mirror. 267 pounds of shame, staring back with hollow eyes. My husband smiled, watching me struggle to breathe after climbing a single flight of stairs. "You're perfect," he whispered, handing me another plate of food I didn't want. But this wasn't love. This was control. 7 years of psychological manipulation disguised as devotion. He'd systematically destroyed my career, my friendships, my health, my very identity. Every pound I gained brought him satisfaction. Every piece of myself I lost made him happier. I was disappearing, and he was the architect of my destruction. The question wasn't if I'd survive. It was whether I'd remember who I used to be. The Memphis summer sun beat down on Overton Park like a hammer on an anvil, turning the pavement into shimmering waves of heat. I sat on a bench near the Rainbow Lake, watching joggers circle the path with an ease I could barely remember. My name is Claire Hastings, and at 38 years old I weighed 267 pounds. But that's not who I used to be. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a photo from 7 years ago. The woman staring back at me was almost unrecognizable. She wore a fitted sundress, her brown hair catching the golden hour light at Shelby Farms. She was laughing, genuinely laughing, at something off camera. That woman weighed 135 pounds. That woman had dreams. That woman didn't know what was coming. "Claire?" A familiar voice cut through my thoughts. I looked up to see Margaret Chen, my former co-worker from the marketing firm on Union Avenue. We'd been close once, back when I still had a career, back when I still had myself. "Margaret, hi." I forced a smile, immediately self-conscious of how the park bench creaked under my weight. Her eyes traveled over me, and I saw it, that flash of shock she tried to hide. "Wow, it's been... how long?" 3 years, I corrected. 4 years since I'd quit my job. 4 years since David had convinced me I'd be happier staying home. 4 years since the walls started closing in. "You look..." She paused, searching for words. "Different. Different." That was the polite Memphis way of saying what everyone thought but wouldn't say. I'd gained 132 pounds since that photo. 132 pounds of shame, of late-night fast food runs, of giving up piece by piece. "I've been focusing on my marriage," I said, repeating the script David had drilled into me. "Taking care of David, you know how it is." Margaret's smile faltered. "Right. Well, I should get going. Book club tonight." She gestured vaguely toward downtown. "It was good seeing you, Claire." I watched her jog away, her ponytail swinging with each stride. The old Claire would have been right beside her. The old Claire had gone to that same book club, had Sunday brunches at the arcade restaurant, had taken weekend trips to Graceland with friends. The old Claire existed before David. We'd met at a barbecue competition at Tom Lee Park 8 years ago. I'd been there covering the event for the marketing firm's food client. David Monroe was judging the ribs, all charm and confidence in his perfectly pressed polo shirt. He was 42 then, a successful insurance claims adjuster, with an easy smile and a way of making you feel like the only person in the room. "You've got sauce on your chin," he'd said, handing me a napkin. I'd laughed, embarrassed. "Occupational hazard of BBQ journalism. Best kind of hazard there is." His green eyes had locked onto mine. "I'm David. Claire." That was the beginning. 6 months of whirlwind dating. Dinners at Folks Folly, walks along the Mississippi River Walk, late-night conversations about everything and nothing. He'd been attentive, affectionate, perfect. When he proposed at the Peabody Hotel's rooftop, overlooking the Memphis skyline at sunset, I'd cried yes, without hesitation. The first year of marriage was normal. We lived in a modest 2-bedroom house in the Cooper Young neighborhood, with its tree-lined streets and artsy vibe. I worked. He worked. We built a life together. Then, slowly, things began to shift. It started with small comments. "You've been looking a little thin, honey. Are you eating enough?" Or, "I love it when you're soft. You feel better in my arms." At first, I took them as compliments. David preferred curves. What was wrong with that? So I stopped counting calories at lunch. I had seconds at dinner. I indulged in the city's famous soul food: Gus's fried chicken, ribs from Central BBQ, banana pudding from Alcinia's. "That's my girl," David would say, watching me clean my plate. His approval felt warm, safe. But the comments didn't stop. They evolved. "Why don't you skip the gym today? Stay home with me instead. Those jeans make you look like you're trying too hard. Just wear something comfortable. Do you really need that salad? It's just rabbit food. Here, I got you the mac and cheese you love." Each suggestion came wrapped in affection, in the promise of his love. And I, desperate to be the wife he wanted, complied. One decision at a time. 1 pound at a time. By our 3rd anniversary, I'd gained 40 pounds. My clothes didn't fit right. I felt sluggish, uncomfortable in my own skin. When I mentioned joining a gym, David's face had darkened. "Are you saying I'm not enough for you?" His voice carried an edge I'd never heard before. "You want to go show off for other men?" "No, David, that's not..." "Because that's what it sounds like." My wife, abandoning me to go prance around in tight yoga pants. "I just want to feel healthier. You're perfect the way you are." He'd pulled me close, his hands gripping my waist possessively. "I love every inch of you. Don't you love me enough to stay just as you are?" That was the first time he'd weaponized love. But it wouldn't be the last. Now, sitting in Overton Park, I felt the August humidity pressing down on me like a physical weight. Sweat pooled under my arms, between my thighs, along my back. The walk from my car to this bench had left me winded. I was 38 years old, and I couldn't walk 100 yards without gasping. My phone buzzed. "David." "Where are you?" "Overton Park, getting some fresh air." "Why? Is something wrong?" "No, I'm making dinner, your favorite. Fried catfish from the market on Summer Avenue. Come home." It wasn't a request. "Okay, I'll be there in 20 minutes. I stood, my knees aching with the effort. The walk back to my car felt endless. Around me, Memphis pulsed with life. Couples walking dogs, families having picnics, people living the lives I used to have. As I drove down Poplar Avenue toward home, passing the familiar landmarks of my city, the Children's Museum, the old theaters, the sprawling medical center, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. I barely recognized the woman staring back. Her face was round, her chin doubled, her eyes tired and hollow. This wasn't just weight. This was defeat, worn like a second skin. "What happened to you?" I whispered to my reflection, but I knew the answer. I'd given myself away, piece by piece, bite by bite, trying to become the woman David wanted me to be. The question was, could I ever find my way back? David was waiting when I walked through the door of our Cooper Young bungalow. The smell of fried fish filled the small living room, mixing with the scent of hush puppies and coleslaw. He'd set the table with our good plates, the ones we saved for special occasions, though I couldn't remember what we were celebrating. "There's my beautiful wife." He kissed my cheek, his hand immediately going to my hip, squeezing. I was starting to worry. "I told you I was at the park." "I know, but you've been acting strange lately." His eyes searched mine, that familiar intensity that once made me feel cherished but now felt like surveillance. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine." The lie came easily now, smooth as glass. Dinner was a production. David had made enough food for 4 people. Fried catfish, mac and cheese from Alcinia's recipe, turnip greens swimming in pot liquor, cornbread dripping with butter, and a full pecan pie from the bakery on Highland. I stared at the spread, my stomach already churning. We'd had Chinese takeout for lunch, delivered from the place on Madison. I wasn't hungry, but David was watching, waiting. "Aren't you going to eat?" His tone was light, but I heard the steel underneath. I picked up my fork. "Of course. That's my girl." He smiled, serving me a massive portion of everything. "You need your strength. You've been looking tired." As I ate, David talked about his day at the insurance office, about a claim from a car accident on I-240, about his boss who never appreciated his work. I nodded, chewed, swallowed, the food sitting heavy in my stomach. More mac and cheese? He held up the serving spoon. I'm actually pretty full. Come on, just a little more. I made it special for you. The smile never left his face, but his eyes had that look, the one that said I was disappointing him. I held out my plate. This was how it worked. Every meal was a test of my love, my devotion, my willingness to sacrifice myself for his happiness. And I, trapped in a cycle of emotional dependency that had taken years to construct, always passed the test, always gave him what he wanted. After dinner, David settled into his recliner with a beer, watching the Grizzlies highlights on ESPN. I cleared the table, my movements slow and labored. The kitchen felt smaller than it used to, or maybe I was just bigger. As I scraped plates into the trash, I caught sight of the calendar on the refrigerator. Tuesday, August 14th, 2024. Tomorrow would be another day just like this one, and the day after, and the day after that. When had my life become so small? I remembered my 30th birthday, before David, before the wait. My friends had thrown me a surprise party at a restaurant on Beale Street. We'd danced to live blues music, laughed until our faces hurt, stayed out until 2 a.m. eating beignets at a 24-hour cafe. I'd felt alive, electric with possibility. Now, at 38, I couldn't remember the last time I'd laughed like that. Couldn't remember the last time I'd seen those friends. David had systematically distanced me from everyone, my coworkers, my college roommates, even my sister Linda in Nashville. They don't understand us, he'd say whenever I mentioned wanting to visit Linda. They don't understand what we have. What we had. I used to think it was love. Now I wasn't so sure. Claire? David called from the living room. Bring me another beer, would you? I brought the beer, sat beside him on the couch. He pulled me close, his arm heavy around my shoulders. See, this is perfect. Just you and me. We don't need anyone else. He kissed the top of my head. You're all I need. The words should have felt romantic. Instead, they felt like a cage door clicking shut. That night, as David snored beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan making lazy circles in the humid Memphis night. Through the window, I could hear the sounds of the neighborhood. Distant music from a bar on Cooper Street, the rumble of a passing car, someone's wind chimes tinkling in the breeze. I pulled out my phone, keeping the screen dim, scrolled to Instagram. My feed was full of people living lives, traveling, achieving, celebrating. Margaret's book club photos, my old coworker Jessica's promotion announcement, Linda's pictures from her daughter's soccer game. Real lives. Full lives. I opened the camera, switched to selfie mode, and looked at myself in the phone's glow. Even in the flattering dim light, I looked exhausted, defeated. When had I stopped fighting? The answer came to me slowly, painfully. I'd stopped fighting the first time David had made me feel like wanting something for myself was selfish. The first time he'd convinced me that changing myself was the same as loving him. I'd been so desperate to be loved, to be enough, that I'd dismantled myself piece by piece. My health, my career, my friendships, my body, my identity, all of it, sacrificed on the altar of David's approval. And he hadn't just let it happen. He'd encouraged it, engineered it. Every midnight drive to get fast food. Every time he'd sabotaged my attempts to exercise. Every, if you loved me, that turned my boundaries into betrayals. David wasn't just my husband. He was my enabler, my manipulator, my warden. The realization hit me like a freight train. I got up carefully, not wanting to wake him, and walked to the bathroom, turned on the light, stood in front of the full-length mirror we'd installed when we first moved in. The woman staring back at me was a stranger, not just because of the weight, though that was the most obvious change. It was the emptiness in her eyes, the way she seemed to take up space without actually existing. I lifted my shirt, looked at my stomach, stretched and marked with angry red lines, touched the flesh that David claimed to love, but that I recognized as evidence of my own disappearance. This body wasn't mine. It was what he'd made of me. Silent tears ran down my face, hot and bitter. In that moment, Standing in the fluorescent bathroom light at 2:30 in the morning, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to get myself back. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. But I knew that this prison of flesh and fear and false love couldn't be my forever. The woman I used to be was still in here somewhere, buried under layers of manipulation and self-sacrifice. And I was going to find her. The next morning I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. David had already left for work, leaving a note on the kitchen counter. Leftover pie for breakfast. Love you. I stared at the note, at the pie sitting on the counter, at the pattern we'd fallen into. Every morning, he'd leave food. Every morning I'd eat it. Every morning I'd sink a little deeper into the quicksand of his control. Not today. I threw the pie in the trash. It was a small act of rebellion, but my hands shook as I did it. Part of me wanted to fish it back out, to eat it, to be the obedient wife who never questioned, never resisted. That part of me had been carefully cultivated over 7 years of manipulation. But there was another part, quieter, but growing stronger, that refused to disappear entirely. I made myself black coffee and sat at the kitchen table, looking out at the August morning. Memphis was already heating up, the sun turning the neighborhood's old oak trees into pillars of golden light. I needed help. I couldn't do this alone. But who could I turn to? David had isolated me so thoroughly that I had no one left. Then I remembered Dr. Patricia Odoms. She'd been my therapist years ago, back when I'd struggled with anxiety about work. I'd stopped seeing her when David suggested therapy was dwelling on negativity. But her office was still on Poplar Avenue near the medical center. My fingers trembled as I called. Dr. Odom's office, this is Shanice speaking. Hi, I'm a former patient, Claire Hastings. I'd like to schedule an appointment. Let me check her availability. Would this week work? As soon as possible. My voice cracked. Please. There was a pause. Then, she has an opening tomorrow at 2. It's usually reserved for emergencies, but I'll take it. Thank you. After I hung up, reality crashed over me. I'd have to lie to David about where I was going. The thought filled me with equal parts fear and exhilaration. When had telling the truth to my own husband become impossible? The rest of the day crawled by. I cleaned the house, did laundry, prepared dinner, all the tasks that had become my entire existence. But beneath the routine, something was stirring. A sense of possibility, fragile as a soap bubble but real. David came home at 6, bringing bags from Top's Barbecue. Surprise! I know you love their ribs. I looked at the bags, at the portions meant for 3 people, at the cycle starting all over again. Actually, I'm not very hungry. The words came out before I could stop them. David's expression shifted, clouds covering the sun. What do you mean you're not hungry? I got this special for you. I know, and that's sweet, but what? He set the bags down hard on the counter. I work all day, thinking about what would make my wife happy, and you can't even appreciate it? Here it was. The guilt trip. The emotional manipulation that had worked 1,000 times before. I do appreciate it. Then eat. Prove it. We stared at each other across the kitchen. In his eyes, I saw something I'd been pretending not to see for years. Not love, but control. Not affection, but possession. David, I'm going to start eating healthier. I've gained too much weight, and it's affecting my health. His jaw tightened. So now you're saying I made you fat? No. Is that what this is? I'm saying I need to take better care of myself. You're fine the way you are. Better than fine. I love you like this. He moved closer, his hands gripping my arms. Don't you trust me to know what's best for you? There it was, the core of his manipulation. Trust me. Love me. Give yourself to me completely. For 7 years I had. I need to do this for me, I said quietly. For you? His laugh was bitter. Or for them. Those people at the park, looking at you with pity. Margaret and her perfect little life? Is that what this is about? How did you... I stopped. He'd been tracking my location. Of course he had. I know everything, Claire. Every place you go, every person you see. I'm your husband. It's my job to protect you." The word protect hung in the air between us, ugly and wrong. "I'm going to bed," I said, moving past him. His hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop me. "We're not done talking about this." "We are." I pulled free and walked to the bedroom, my heart hammering. Behind me, I heard David slam his fist on the counter, heard him cursing under his breath. I locked the bedroom door, something I'd never done before, and sat on the edge of the bed, shaking. My phone buzzed. A text from David, sent from the other room. "I'm sorry. I just love you so much. Please come out. Let's talk." Then another. "You're scaring me. Are you okay?" And another. "If you loved me, you wouldn't shut me out like this." The texts kept coming, cycling through anger, apology, manipulation, and back again. I turned my phone face down and focused on breathing. Tomorrow I'd see Dr. Odoms. Tomorrow I'd start finding my way out of this maze. But tonight I'd taken the first step. I'd said no. The next afternoon, I told David I had a doctor's appointment. It wasn't technically a lie. Dr. Odoms was a doctor, just not the kind he'd approve of. Her office looked exactly as I remembered. Warm beige walls, soft lighting, a couch that managed to be both professional and comfortable. Dr. Odoms herself was in her late 50s, with kind brown eyes and silver-streaked hair pulled back in a neat bun. "Claire." She smiled, but I saw the shock flash across her face as she took in how much I'd changed. "It's good to see you. Please sit." I sat, and the words came pouring out. 7 years of manipulation, control, isolation. The weight gain, the destroyed career, the lost friendships. David's constant monitoring, his emotional abuse disguised as love, his systematic dismantling of my identity. Dr. Odoms listened, taking notes, her expression growing more concerned with each revelation. "Claire," she said when I finally ran out of words, "what you're describing is a textbook case of psychological abuse and coercive control." Hearing the words spoken aloud made them real in a way they hadn't been before. "He loves me," I said weakly, repeating the script I'd clung to for so long. "Does he? Or does he love controlling you?" She leaned forward. "Real love doesn't require you to destroy yourself. Real love doesn't demand you give up your health, your career, your friends, your very identity. What you're describing isn't love, Claire. It's ownership." Tears streamed down my face. "I don't know how to leave. I don't even know who I am anymore without him." "Then that's where we start. We rebuild you, piece by piece, layer by layer, until you remember who Claire Hastings is when she's not performing for David's approval." "How?" "First, we establish safety. You need people in your corner. Who can you call?" I thought immediately of Linda, my sister. 3 hours away in Nashville, but always ready to help. My sister. Call her, today. Tell her everything. Start building your support network. What about David? What do I tell him? For now, nothing. We need to be strategic. Leaving an abusive relationship is the most dangerous time. We plan carefully. We move deliberately. But Claire, her eyes locked onto mine, we do move. This isn't sustainable. You know that, don't you? I nodded, the weight of it crushing and liberating at once. You deserve to exist, Claire. Not just as David's wife, but as yourself. You deserve to take up space in your own life. When I left her office, I sat in my car in the parking lot on Poplar Avenue, watching the Memphis traffic flow past. The late afternoon sun painted everything in shades of gold and amber. I picked up my phone, dialed Linda's number. "Claire? Oh my God, I was just thinking about you. How are you? It's been months since—" "Linda." My voice broke. "I need help." There was a pause, then, "Tell me everything." And I did. Linda drove down from Nashville the following Saturday. David thought she was visiting for a casual weekend. Didn't suspect that my sister was actually conducting a rescue operation. We met at the Civil Rights Museum on Mulberry Street, in the shadow of the Lorraine Motel, where Dr. King had been assassinated. The location felt fitting, a place of transformation, of fighting for freedom. Linda hugged me tight when she saw me, and I felt her body tense with shock at how much weight I'd gained. But she didn't comment. She just held me. "Let's walk," she said. We strolled through the South Main Arts District, past the galleries and boutiques, Linda's presence beside me a lifeline I hadn't known I desperately needed. "David doesn't know you're here, does he?" I asked. "He knows I'm in Memphis. He doesn't know why." Linda's face was hard. "Claire, I've been so worried. You disappeared, stopped answering calls, stopped visiting. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know how bad. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. This isn't your fault." She stopped walking, turned to face me. "But you need to leave him. You know that, right?" The words hung between us like a challenge. "I don't have a job. No savings. He controls all the finances. You can stay with me in Nashville, as long as you need. He'll come after me. Let him try." Linda's voice was steel. "You have rights. We'll get a lawyer. We'll file for divorce. We'll make sure you're protected." Protected. The word that David had twisted into a weapon. Linda offered as a shield. "I'm scared," I whispered. "Good. Fear means you're alive. Fear means you're ready to fight." She squeezed my hand. "The Claire I know, my fierce, brilliant, strong sister. She's still in there. We're going to get her back." Over the next 3 weeks, I planned my escape with the precision of a military operation. Dr. Odoms helped me understand the psychology of leaving an abuser. Linda researched divorce lawyers and safe housing. I secretly gathered documents, birth certificate, social security card, bank statements, medical records. David noticed my distraction. "You're being distant," he accused one evening in late August, the Memphis heat making our small house feel like a pressure cooker. "I'm just tired." "Tired of what? Being my wife?" His voice carried that dangerous edge. "Tired in general, David. It's been a long day. Every day is long for you now. Maybe if you'd stop whatever you're planning." "I'm not planning anything." He grabbed my phone off the counter. "Then let me see this." My heart stopped. I'd been careful, deleting texts, clearing browser history. But one slip-up, one forgotten message. "Give it back." "Not until you tell me the truth. Who have you been talking to?" He scrolled through my phone, his face darkening. "Your sister. Your sister has been filling your head with poison, hasn't she? Linda loves me. Linda wants to destroy us. She's always been jealous of what we have." He threw my phone against the wall where it shattered. "I won't let her take you from me." I stared at the broken pieces of my phone on the floor, and something inside me broke too. Or maybe it finally healed. "She's not taking me from you, David. I'm leaving you." The words came out calm, clear, final. David's face went through a series of expressions: shock, rage, disbelief, and finally, a cold calculation that chilled me to the bone. "No, you're not." "Yes, I am. You have nothing without me. No job, no money, no friends. Who's going to want you? Look at yourself." He gestured cruelly at my body. "I'm the only one who could ever love you like this." The words were designed to shatter me. A year ago, they would have. But I'd spent 3 weeks remembering who I was, talking to Dr. Odoms, planning with Linda, rebuilding the foundation of my self-worth brick by brick. "You're right," I said quietly. "I have nothing. You made sure of that. You isolated me, controlled me, manipulated me into destroying myself. But you know what, David? I'd rather have nothing and be free than have everything and be your prisoner." His hand shot out, grabbing my arm. "You're not leaving. Let go of me. Make me." I'd prepared for this moment, had my exit strategy was parked ready. 3 blocks away. My bag was hidden in the garage. All I needed was to get out the door. "If you don't let go, I'm calling the police." "With what phone?" He laughed, gesturing to the shattered device. "With Linda's. She's right outside." The lie worked. David's grip loosened slightly as he glanced toward the window. It was all the opportunity I needed. I pulled free, grabbed my keys from the hook by the door, and ran. ran like my life depended on it, because in many ways, it did. Behind me, I heard David shouting, heard him chasing. But I was desperate, and desperation gave me speed I didn't know I still possessed. I made it to my car, fumbled with the keys, locked the doors just as David reached it. He pounded on the window, screaming threats and promises and apologies all mixed together. I started the engine, backed out of the driveway with David standing in the street. As I drove away, I saw him in the rearview mirror, growing smaller and smaller until he disappeared. I drove to the meeting point, a Kroger parking lot on Union Avenue. Linda was waiting, just as she'd promised. When I got out of my car, my legs gave out. Linda caught me as I fell, both of us sinking to the warm pavement, holding each other as I sobbed. "It's over," Linda whispered. "You did it. You're free. Free." The word felt foreign and precious at once. We drove to Nashville that night, leaving Memphis and David and 7 years of my life behind. The first 3 months in Nashville were the hardest. David called constantly until I blocked his number. He showed up at Linda's house twice, the second time resulting in a restraining order. He tried to freeze our joint accounts, but Linda's lawyer was faster, better prepared. The divorce took 8 months. 8 months of legal battles, of depositions, of reliving every moment of manipulation and control in excruciating legal detail. But through it all, I started rebuilding. Dr. Odoms had referred me to a therapist in Nashville, Dr. James Freeman, who specialized in trauma recovery. Twice a week, I sat in his office in Green Hills and dismantled the lies David had built into my identity. "You are not unlovable," Dr. Freeman would remind me. "You are not worthless. You are not defined by what David made you believe about yourself." I started small, walks around Linda's neighborhood, then longer walks, then a gym membership at the community center, where I moved at my own pace, reclaiming my body inch by inch. The weight came off slowly, 40 pounds in the first 6 months, then another 30 over the following year. But it wasn't about the number on the scale anymore. It was about feeling strong, about remembering that my body was mine, not a canvas for someone else's desires. I got a job, starting over at 40 in the marketing department of a small nonprofit. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. My work, my achievement, my identity beyond being David's wife. I reconnected with old friends, tentatively at first, then more confidently. Coffee dates turned into dinner parties. Texts turned into real conversations. The social network David had systematically destroyed began to rebuild itself, stronger and more authentic than before. On the first anniversary of leaving David, I drove back to Memphis. Not to see him, but to reclaim the city I'd once loved. I walked through Overton Park, where I'd sat on that bench feeling hopeless and trapped. I had lunch at the Arcade restaurant, where I'd brunched with friends a lifetime ago. I stood on the banks of the Mississippi River, watching the sunset paint the water in shades of orange and gold. Memphis would always be part of my story, but it no longer defined me. The divorce was finalized on a cold February morning. I signed the papers in my lawyer's office in downtown Nashville, Linda beside me, her hand in mine. "How do you feel?" Linda asked as we walked out into the winter sunshine. "Light," I said, and meant it. I'd lost 102 pounds by then. But more than that, I'd shed the weight of shame, of manipulation, of living my life for someone else's approval. I was 40 years old. I weighed 165 pounds. I had a modest apartment in East Nashville, a job I actually enjoyed, friends who saw and valued the real me. I was not the woman I'd been at 30 when I met David. I was better. That evening, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, really looking at myself for the first time in years. The woman staring back had laugh lines and stretch marks. She had scars, visible and invisible, but her eyes were alive. Her smile was real. Her body, while not perfect, was strong and hers. "Hello, Claire," I said to my reflection. "Welcome back." 2 years after leaving David, I attended a support group for survivors of domestic abuse at a community center in Nashville. I'd been going for 6 months, mostly listening, still learning how to tell my story without shame. But tonight was different. "I'd like to share," I said, standing up. 12 faces turned toward me. Women of all ages, all backgrounds, united by the common thread of having survived. "My name is Claire, and my ex-husband manipulated me into gaining over 130 pounds. He used food as a weapon, love as a leash, and my own desperate need for approval as a cage. I took a breath, steadied myself. For 7 years, I disappeared. I gave up my career, my friends, my health, my identity, all because I believed that love meant sacrifice, that being a good wife meant erasing myself. Around the circle, women nodded. They understood. But I also want to tell you that it's possible to come back, to rebuild, to remember who you were before the abuse, and to become someone even stronger. It took therapy, it took family support, it took legal help, it took time. But I did it. My voice
I'm
grew
not
stronger.
telling you this to brag. I'm telling you this so you know. You are not your lowest moment. You are not the worst thing someone convinced you to believe about yourself. You are not trapped forever. I looked at each woman in turn. You can leave. You can heal. You can reclaim yourself. After the meeting, 3 women approached me, asking for advice, for hope, for proof that escape was possible. I gave them what I wish someone had given me 7 years ago: honesty, resources, and the unwavering message that they deserved better. On my 42nd birthday, I ran a 5K. I didn't win. I finished somewhere in the middle of the pack, sweaty and exhausted and exhilarated. Linda and her family were waiting at the finish line, cheering. My friend Sarah from work was there. Dr. Freeman had sent flowers to my apartment with a card that read, "Proud of you. Keep running toward yourself." That night, I sat on my apartment balcony, looking out over East Nashville's twinkling lights. I thought about the woman I'd been, the one who'd sat in Overton Park feeling hopeless, the one who'd stared at her reflection and couldn't find herself. She was still part of me, would always be part of my story, but she wasn't my ending. She was my beginning. I'd learned that love shouldn't cost you yourself, that sacrifice has limits, that the most important relationship you have is with the person staring back at you in the mirror. I'd learned that enablers disguise control as care, that psychological abuse leaves scars just as real as physical ones, that dependence can be weaponized by people who claim to love you. But most importantly, I'd learned that you can come back. From obesity, from manipulation, from losing yourself so completely that you forget you were ever whole. You can rebuild. You can reclaim. You can rise from the ashes of who you used to be and become someone stronger, wiser, more authentically yourself. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Book club tomorrow night? We're reading about feminist icons. Figured you'd be interested." I smiled, typing back. "Absolutely. I'll bring wine. Book club, friends, choices, life. The simple, beautiful freedom of being myself." I leaned back in my chair, breathing in the cool Tennessee evening air, and felt something I hadn't felt in 8 years. Peace. Not because I'd found perfect love or perfect happiness or a perfect body, but because I'd found myself, and that, I'd learned, was more than enough.